Namaskar, and it's a proud privilege for Akashvani to welcome Mike Massimino, who is a former NASA astronaut and who made history as one of the first astronauts to, post onto the social media from space. And you tweeted actually, which is now known as X.
Yeah.
And during your strides or your odyssey in space, you played a key role in servicing the Hubble Space Telescope. You've also been a professor at the Columbia University. You're a prominent speaker, and he's also an advocate for space exploration. Thank you very much for joining us in the studios today.
Thanks for having me.
Mike, and this is indeed a pleasure. And India also is being a big player where space launches and space technology is concerned. We are one of the few countries, along with the United States and others, to have cutting-edge technology. We would request you to please share your experiences as an astronaut with NASA and your challenges and memorable experiences too in space.
Sure. Well, thanks very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Learning more about what India is up to was kind of fun. My first time in the country. I've flown over the country a lot in space and looked down and admired it. So it's great to be here in person. I was with NASA as an astronaut for 18 years, from 1996 until 2014. And I was on two missions. Both of my missions were on the space shuttle to the Hubble Space Telescope, and I got the spacewalk, which was quite an experience. A lot of hard work, a bit stressful, but quite an experience going outside in your spacesuit and working on the telescope. So that's what my space flights were about. And now, as you said, I'm teaching here. I teach in New York City at Columbia. As far as memorable things go, I think most memorable for me were the spacewalks and all the preparation and the training that went into them, and then going out there and executing the plan. And not everything goes according to the way you expect it. We always said every spacewalk is a little bit different. There's always something that you don't expect, or something that's a little bit different than what you trained for, and you have to move and accommodate and change the plan. But they all seem to work out in the end.
Right. As you know, India's ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organization, is also planning to send astronauts into space very soon. And the mission is known as Mission Gaganyaan. So how do you view this?
I'm very excited about it. I think that it's great to be able to send spacecraft and satellites, and what they did on the moon with Chandrayaan was spectacular. But there's always something a little bit different about sending people there, because then you're sending a representative to go there, and it's like everyone gets to go personally. So I'm very excited for India to be doing this. I'm particularly excited because the commander of that mission is a very good friend of mine. Right. Peggy Whitson was my astronaut classmate. I've known her since 1996, which is a long time now. How long? It's almost 30 years. Yes, I've known her a long time. She's a very good friend of mine, and I know she's looking forward to that mission. So I'm looking forward to that for that reason, but for my friend Peggy, but also flying with your countrymen is going to be, I think, very exciting for a lot of people around the world, not just here in India.
From your perspective, or since from NASA's perspective, when Chandrayaan 3 landed on the surface of the moon in August 21st, August 2023 in the lunar the south pole of the moon, how do you view that?
I thought it was spectacular for a number of reasons. One is India was only the fourth country to be able to land something on the moon, but they went to a very interesting part of the moon down by the South Pole, and the interest there is that we think that there is ice trapped in that area, so water ice. So that water is important for us for life, but also maybe for propulsion systems to use as for fuel in the future. So that is a very interesting area of the moon, but it's hard to get there. It's a rough terrain. It's not as easy as some of the other places. When we sent the humans that were sent there, when the United States sent the astronauts there back in the late 1960s and over 50 years ago, in the early 1970s, they more or less stayed in the middle of the moon, where it's a little bit easier to land and communicate with people there. So it's a more difficult place to get to, and they were able to do that. So it's quite an accomplishment. I think also the excitement it generated here in India and back in the United States was significant. I think that type of accomplishment gets everybody excited. And you can do some great things scientifically with science and engineering, but to do something like that, like landing on the moon, really gets people excited.
Recently, India also successfully docked 2 satellites in space.
Yeah.
And became the 4th nation to complete this mission. It is considered a milestone. And how do you, view this achievement of India?
Yeah, rendezvousing and docking to 2 spacecraft is not easy. To be very precise in orbit like that, because the orbital mechanics don't always make sense. If you try to catch up to something, go quickly, you'll go to a higher orbit, and then you'll get further away from it. So, and if you try to slow down, you'll drop down and then speed up and get ahead of it. Orbits are not easy things to.
India is also working on setting up its own space station very soon, by say 2035 or 40. So, how do you view this development?
I think that we have the International Space Station, of course, which is the Indian astronaut will be going to in a few months. I think the wave of the future is going to be space stations for more economic development, and I think governments are going to be looking toward going further away to the moon, as India has done in the United States as well, and others. So I think that's the future in space in low Earth orbit. I think is going to be more of an economic venture. And I think it's now open to more and more companies and countries to do that work. And then the next goal for people anyway is moon and beyond. But I think that would be tremendous. Getting more people active in the research and the development that can be done in low Earth orbited space stations.
Right. I'd also like to know from you that very soon, maybe in a couple of years, both ISRO, that is the Indian Space Research Organization, and NASA would be launching a joint rocket called NISAR aboard an Indian launch vehicle. So how do you look at this development, and what are the areas that both India and the United States can collaborate in using space for global good?
Yeah, I think one of the advantages we have of the space program that's often overlooked is international cooperation. The space station, the International Space Station, was initially something called Space Station Freedom, which was mainly a United States space station, and that was under development in the 1980s. And it had cost overruns. It wasn't going very well with its development, and then it was changed to the International Space Station, where the United States began working with the countries of Europe and Japan and Canada and Russia as well. And that made it a much stronger program because you were taking resources and intellect and ideas from around the world, and every country had different experiences in space, so we were able to pool those together, and out of that came the International Space Station program, which has been a very successful program also for international cooperation and friendship, and you can agree on technical problems. A lot of times political issues might not always align between countries, but when you have a common goal, when it's a technical goal, and I think space is the best thing that countries can cooperate on, I think you can agree on that, and you can move forward with your relationships as well. So I think it's really a good thing that the United States and India will cooperate on this as you describe, and I hope that does happen. They're two great countries, two very big, powerful countries with a lot of smart people and a lot of technological breakthroughs in both countries. So if we can cooperate on a common goal to explore space together, I think that's good for our countries, but also for the whole world.
Right. We have time and again, that is India has time and again emphasized on the secure use of space, and space being free from any kind of violence or intimidation. And also, India is a big proponent of a clean space. That is, we have a lot of debris in the space, and India is working on. Do you think this is an area where both the United States and India can collaborate to clean up the debris which is there?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff up there. We were very concerned even when I was flying over 15 years ago. We were worried about debris impacts. The Hubble Space Telescope had hit things. The shuttle had. The space station has impacts. It's a problem. And cleaning it up is not easy because things are at different orbits and traveling at different speeds, and you can't maneuver around as well as you'd like. So I think the cleanup is important, and also not making it worse. So, for example, with the Hubble Space Telescope, on the last mission, we attached a docking ring to it so that when its useful life is over, a rocket motor can go up there and guide it back to Earth, burning it up in the atmosphere so it doesn't create any debris and doesn't pose any hazard to people on Earth. And I think you bring up a good point and I'm glad that India is doing this. When you launch something, you need to be responsible for it. Not only getting it there and having it function and work, but also disposing of it when its life is over, getting it out of there in a safe way, and not cluttering up the environment worse up there. We have different environmental issues. Here it's about keeping our environment clean and clean water and air and so on, but up there the debris poses a real hazard to anything, to satellites, to spacecraft, to people. So
absolutely,
you need to be responsible, and I think we're at that point where we have to be that, and also think about how we can clean it up. That's a tough problem, though.
What is your take on when would Sunita Williams be back on Earth?
I hope she's back soon. She's a very good friend of mine. I got to work with her for many years, and I've been exchanging email with her, saying hi and telling her we care about her, of course, and she knows that. I think the latest that I've heard is that the crew that will be there to relieve them will be launching on March the 12th. So they usually have about a week or so of handover. So I think maybe the third week of March, in about a month's time, I think she should be back here.
Well, that's very, very. Let's pray that
she's a great
happens.
lady. She's a good friend, a great lady, and you'll also be very proud of her here in India and in the United States. Of course, we're proud of her too.
In conclusion, what would be your message to young minds who would like to pursue a career in space?
Find your passion. See what you're interested in, and explore whatever you can, especially in school. I visited a school today here in India, public school, wonderful place. The students are very eager to learn. The instructors, the teachers are there, very dedicated. So I would encourage young people of India to study hard, learn as much as they can, do as best as you can. Don't worry about doing a certain, this or grade or this or that. Just do the best that you can, learn as much as you can, develop a passion, and don't give up when things get tough. School is tough. It's it's the hardest thing I've had to do was learn in school. After that, life became easier. Once I was through with school, I went to a lot of school. But those are where you're going to find your challenges. So don't give up. Reach out and get help from your teachers or your parents or your friends, and keep going. But pursue it because it's worth it. It's an extraordinary world we live in, and technology, there's such a great technological foundation here in India. Take advantage of that and pursue whatever it is that you're interested in, whether it's engineering or science or medicine or whatever it might be. Pursue that, and all those paths that I mentioned in all STEM fields lead to space. So keep an eye on what's available for you in space as well.
On that very positive note, and I'm sure that both India and the United States can collaborate on STEM, as you mentioned, that is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and also space. And hopefully one day, if we do not conquer, but at least we will be there as close collaborators at the final frontier.
And certainly on this next mission that you mentioned.
Thank you, Mike Massimino, for joining us in Akashvani Podcast today and sparing your valuable time. It was indeed a pleasure. Thank you so very much. Namaskar.
Thank you for having me.